Well, hello. It is the Brian Hornback Experience. This is episode 65. Um, I had some recorded a bunch. I've recorded several today, and then YouTube decided to throw a little wrench in in my playing of some bumper music of Handsome and the Humbles. So we're going to forego music until I can figure that whole system out. So it is the Brian Hornback Experience, episode 65, and we have another candidate running for Knox County Commission at large, seat 10 in the Republican primary. That's coming up on your May 3rd ballot. Early voting starts April 13th through the 28th. And we've got Steve Weiner on the Brian Hornback Experience. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So, wow, you got into this one. So I had the privilege of having Christine Cruz on a few weeks ago. She had spent about a year planning to run for this seat, and then, I think some situations come up, and she just decided that for her and her family, it just wasn't meant to be for 2022. And then that's, I guess, when you found out that the incumbent was going to go, I guess, unchallenged in the primary, and you decided to jump in. So you're coming into a little bit late, but you're still in the race. So kind of talk about that process.
Well, I was sick earlier around New Year's, and I was kind of out of it for a couple of weeks. I didn't know about Christine being out of the race.
Oh wow!
And that was until I heard about it. Like, so I went back to work. I heard about it. From I remember who it was who told me.
Right.
I was thinking that there's a void there that needed to be filled. Because I have the greatest respect for Christine. I thought she was going to be, a good candidate for that.
Oh yeah.
I still thought she's going to be a good candidate for that. But and that's kind of why I didn't want to get involved in this race earlier, was because of her candidacy and my support for her in her efforts.
Well, and what happens, unfortunately, is if Christine and you both were to challenge the incumbent in a primary, obviously y'all kind of divide the votes up, and then that
right.
That potentially favors the incumbent, I guess. So I mean that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense for why you didn't enter the race earlier. And so how has the reaction been since you announced that you're going to seek the Republican nomination for the at-large seat 10 seat?
It's been very favorable. I've got a lot of positive feedback on this, and this is going to be a grassroots effort. A lot of people are supporting us, supporting me in this race, and that's the way it's going to happen. That's how I'm going to have to win it, is through the grassroots, and I can't do it with the big money donors, like my opponent has. I mean, he has $190,000 in his war chest right now.
Wow.
And I'm going to have to do it through the people, and not through the big money, donors and so forth. So that's how I plan on doing this race.
And that's $190,000 on hand, and he's already spent. He's probably already spent what, 50 or 60,000 already. So, we're approaching probably $250,000 at this point. It kind of looks like. I mean, it's been
running for Congress here or something, right?
Exactly. But and this is a job. This is a 4-year job. It's a job that's going to, that's supposed to be a part-time job, where you just represent the constituents countywide.
Right.
And, I guess the scuttlebutt about your opponent is that he's recently, I guess, put his house on the market, and he's moved to another house while he builds a third house, and ultimately going to move to Sequoia Hills. Supposedly, I guess the story on that is, I read it in the paper, that he's looking to run for city mayor in 2 years and challenge the current city mayor. So, I mean, so he's not really even committed to a 4-year term at this point, right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. He's raised he has $190,000 on hand, but that's not all for me. That's for his future plans, next year.
Right.
So if he wins this race, and he runs for city mayor and gets that, we're going to have a special election in 2 years from now to fill that.
Right.
It just added expense, it's a waste of time, everybody's time, basically. If he wants to run for city mayor, run for city mayor, do it,
Right.
Don't run for this, if you're not wanting to do it. I made a pledge that I'm going to serve the full 4-year term on this if I get elected. I'm not going to seek any other office during that 4-year term, and I call upon Marson to make that same pledge. If he's listening here, I call upon you to make the pledge that you will not seek another elected office the next 4 years. And he won't do it.
Right.
He won't commit to that. So,
right.
That's a big issue in this race, I think.
Well, and he's got to, one of you, obviously, because there's only two of you, one of you will win May the 3rd in the Republican primary. And then after that, if you're victorious on May 3rd, then you've got to face a Democrat opponent on August the 4th. So, it's not a done deal on May 3rd, because you still got to continue to campaign through August 4th.
Brian, I've never worked so hard for a $20,000 a year job in my life. You ran for school board, so you're probably aware of some of this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not doing this, because I just happen to love the pay,
right.
the glamorous benefits of it. I'm doing this because I care about serving the people. That's my campaign. It's all about serving the public. So that's always my joke. I think you get paid more at
probably at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, working at Best Buy or someplace
right.
doing this.
Well, the city mayor recently announced that they're going to raise the minimum wage for all city workers to $15 an hour. You could probably make more money working part time for the city of Knoxville than you could as a county commissioner. But
probably for sure.
Right. Well, and we met, I don't know, a couple years ago through some Republican clubs. You began attending the Farragut and the Carnes Republican clubs, and that's where we met several years ago. And I got a lot of respect for you back, I guess, a year and a half or so ago when the county commission was asking for citizens to potentially serve as a citizen representative on the Board of Health. You submitted your resume, probably one of, I guess there was probably 15 or so. And then as the commission was making that decision through the night, a lot of the candidates left because it was getting into the late hours. And I think around 1 o'clock in the morning, I recall you and Attorney Bill Fix, friend of mine, and then also the lady they ultimately chose. And you all stayed until the duration for that interview process. Your opponent actually wanted to not actually interview those of you that had stayed till 1 o'clock in the morning. He was unsuccessful in that. That's
another difference. That's another difference between me and my opponent, right? You're there until the people's business is done, no matter how long it takes. That's why you sign up for the job, right? You're there till the people are done, till everything is done. Because if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, or 9 o'clock the next morning, that would suck. By the way, that really suck. We had to do that, but really, you're there until the business is done. I'm glad the commissioners, who voted in support of having the interviews that night prevailed, because that would have been insulting to everybody who stayed there.
Right.
And waited it out. Right. It'd been an immense waste of time for all of us.
It almost seemed like the fix was in for someone else that probably left.
I don't know.
I mean, just
thankful that.
Right.
Go ahead.
Kudos to you. You stayed and you were. It went through several votes to select it, and you came up a vote short, and Miss Roma wound up being the citizen representative, but you stayed, and you endured all the different votes to get to that point, and so I think it's important that as people are considering people to vote for, it's important, one, that we consider people who have experience, who have actually showed up when it was time to show up, and have stuck through it. So I give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, thank you. One more thing I wanted to mention
Yep.
too. There was my county commissioner, John Schoonmaker, was looking for someone to fill the library board position. When was it? A couple of years ago. It was a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I can't remember when it was, but nobody else wanted to do it, right? I guess I was, he said, "Hey, you want to do this?" I said, "Sure," And then there was a juvenile court board, the juvenile detention center board that I was up for last year, if you recall.
Oh, that's right.
I applied for that, and I came up short on that too. But I've been engaged. I've been engaged ever since I was a young man. I was involved in Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout. I've been engaged in this process for longer than some people might think. So
now, what year did you get your Eagle Scout?
05.
Okay, so I'm considerably older, but I'm a 1984 Eagle Scout. So that
What
takes.
was your project?
My project was a beautification project that included construction of some flower beds at our church out in East Knox County. So they were changing the rules in the middle of my Eagle Scout project. Used to, you could when my brother got his I believe he got his in 1980. I got mine in 1984. We were I believe this is accurate. We were the only sets of brothers to both attain the Eagle Scout. But so you had to they were changing it right in the middle of my Eagle Scout project, where you had to incorporate other scouts, and so you had to show leadership, and so I was able to do that. But yeah, so it was it was kind of cool. It was cool. So but yeah,
it's a fun development. It's like a team building thing too. It's teaching you, preparing you for your being an adult and being a leadership position as an adult. I think that's the main point of a project like that. So that's the way I saw it.
So after that, I guess you went on to college, and then you went on to law school, because you do practice law, correct?
When I was in college, I'm actually a published author,
Oh, wow.
In an academic journal. So I'm also Phi Beta Kappa too. Actually, I was involved in a research lab for the psychological clinic over at UT, where I assisted graduate students on their various projects. And I ended up getting a site on one of their papers, that they ended up publishing for her. I believe it was her dissertation. Yeah, I think it was for her dissertation. And that was you have all this talk right now about trust the science, and all that, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
And I think I'm in a good position to understand how the scientific method works, because I did it. This project was a multi-year long project where we, challenged some ideas we had about subject that was the hypothesis of this paper. We kind of found out some things we weren't expecting. So you got to test your hypothesis. You don't come up with a conclusion first and then try to reach that. You have to come up with a hypothesis, and then you test that, and then whether it comes valid or not, you re-examine it at the end. So that's how I learned how to do scientific method. So that's kind of my thing.
Well, and getting back to the commission, another thing that I guess that I've heard individuals be frustrated about is that, when your opponent was chairman for 1 year, he changed the rules to where they went from 5 minutes to 3 minutes for public forum, and they're only limiting public forum to like an hour on the front end if it's an item on the agenda, and it's and an hour on the back end. To me, that a lot of people say that's an indication that that the commission really doesn't want to hear from the public. What's your thoughts about that rule change, and would you consider either going back to the 5 minute rule, or potentially just saying, hey, if everybody signs up, then everybody needs to be heard?
Yeah, absolutely. If you sign up and you're there to speak, you have the right to be heard. And I will never support any effort to limit that. I mean, like I said, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I don't care if it takes all night, right?
Right.
It's not just part of the process.
Right.
Limiting to 3 minutes or 5 minutes or anything like that. People need to have their say and feel like government's being responsive. one aspect of civic participation is voting. Everybody knows about that, right? But, a lot of people don't think there's other parts to this, right? To the participatory democracy. And part of that is addressing your elected officials, and that's one of the most important rights we have next to voting in this country is being able to address those issues. So, that's I would never support any effort to limit public participation in commission meetings.
Right.
So
what else have you heard out there about anything in relation to the current commission or how the current commission operates or how you envision your own representation once you're the commissioner for seat 10?
Right. Yeah. It's all authority comes from the public. I think it should be a public guided process. We should be responsive to requests and phone calls. I mean, you have a public email address. You have a county sponsored email address. You have a county cell phone. Our elected officials do. Right. It should be driven by that, not how I feel about a particular issue, but how my constituents feel about the issue. And if people are really concerned about, I don't know, be it a Board of Health or, beer board or whatever it is that people are concerned about, we should listen to them and let that guide what we do as their representatives. Yep. So that's how I would approach it.
Well, I think it's, I appreciate the fact that you're offering yourself to the citizens of Knox County. I mean, again, I don't think just because someone has a lot of money that they should not go without opposition. I think the whole reason that we have a representative republic is because we should be able to compare and contrast different individuals. And I mean, if you go back 4 years ago, you look at Justin Biggs, who serves in the seat 11.
Right.
Not the seat you're running for, but he was outspent nearly 2-1, and he was successful. You look at Mayor Glenn Jacobs; he had two opponents that outraised and outspent him 2-1, and he was able to win with about less than 24 votes. And so I think I think what I'm seeing right now on commission, particularly in land use issues, is
right.
that people are beginning to question, is the commission really looking at those land use issues, or are they just rubber stamping them? I heard a question at a recent Hall's Republican Club meeting about a situation where the Metropolitan Planning Commission had recommended a certain density, but your opponent recommended more houses to that development than the Metropolitan Planning Commission and the Metropolitan Planning Commission itself, both the staff and the commission itself, had recommended. And his rationale was, well, the builder was going to give us road infrastructure. Well, I mean, is that really the role? I mean, should the county usurp the building of roads? And then the other question you get into with that, in my opinion, is that what happens if that road becomes defective?
Right.
Who's
responsible at that
right.
point? Yeah.
So what's your thought? I mean, obviously, we were in the same room at that particular meeting.
Right.
What's your thought on the whole land use? Have you had a chance? I mean, I know you got into this race kind of late in the filing process, but have you had a chance to really look at some of the land use issues and what your thoughts are? And
yes.
have you had a chance to look at the money trail?
Yes, the land use issues are always been the most difficult for commission because it impacts people so much, it impacts property owners so much. I'm not 100. Like you said, I'm just getting started on this. But we have a plan, a development plan that we're working off of. I think that's how I believe that's how the Metropolitan Planning Commission approaches these issues. Is it consistent with the plan in whatever sector it's in, or whatever sector the development's going to be in? I think that's how they make their recommendations to the full planning commission. The staff make them to the full planning commission.
Right.
Excuse me. And the full planning commission votes on it, and then it goes to with or without a recommendation to the full county commission. And I'm not saying we should be deferential 100% of the time to the planning department, but these people who are in the planning department have the expertise in these areas of, projecting growth and the actuarial aspect of it and all that stuff. And I think that we should take that advice from the planning commission staff, and examine it, make sure it's appropriate before we make a decision on whether or not we're going to grant a particular density of land use or particular zoning thing like industrial or residential or whatever. I think we should, examine it, but we should take into account the recommendations of the staff whose profession it is to come up with these growth plans, so we're growing in a way that's orderly, and makes sense. Because these plans have been, developed over the course of years by our planning department, I believe, right?
Right.
You probably
right.
heard something about this stuff too.
Oh yeah.
I'm just getting into this, getting into this planning stuff. But that's my understanding of it, is that you have a staff of people who look at this before it even goes before the Metropolitan Planning Commission to begin with, and I think we should be doing growth. Growth's going to happen, right?
Right.
We know people are moving here from all over the place, but the question is, are we going to do it in a way that makes sense? Are we going to do it in a way that's responsible to existing landowners, and existing infrastructure? It's a balance. It's a balancing act, really, and I don't think we should be, exporting our infrastructure projects unless it's like stuff like sidewalks or parks,
right.
things like that.
Right.
In terms of actually constructing roads and so forth, I think that's better left for the county to do that.
Right.
But if you're going to be adding infrastructure, I have no problem with the sidewalks and the parks,
right.
and stuff like that. But when you're talking about major infrastructure, that becomes a concern in terms of liability,
right.
for who's responsible for that, like you said. So,
right.
Like I said, I'm new at this.
Sure.
I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yep.
That seems to me to be what's going on with that.
Well, and it's kind of like the county commission and the county mayor. You have the Metropolitan Planning Commission. That's kind of their role, right? To study it and to make recommendations. The same way with the schools. The county commission approves the budget, but then you have an elected school board that kind of makes those, curriculum choices, and they make the policy decisions, and they hire the superintendent. And so, you kind of have to rely on them to kind of make those decisions that are in the best interest of what they do, which is education. So, it's not something, I heard your opponent recently say that the job of a commissioner is to be the telephone operator. Well, if you're out here usurping the authority of the Metropolitan Planning Commission in going against whatever their recommendation is, then you're doing more than just disseminating information. And so, again, I think, I think what people need to understand is that, you're willing, to show up, you're willing to do the work, you're willing to do the research, talk to the people, return calls, return emails, and those type things.
Right.
And we're getting toward the end, and I appreciate you joining me, but where can people find you? I assume you've got a Facebook page, potentially have a website. Where can people find you if they need to find out more information?
That's both SteveWeiner.com, email, or we have a Facebook page as well. Steve Weiner, Conservative Commissioner C10 is our Facebook page.
Okay.
And we have our contact information on there as well. So, or my contact information on there as well.
Great. So that's
people can reach out, and people have already door knocked with, they've already several of them already called me up and asked me about, well, what do you think about, for example, today, the big issue today was Hallsdale Powell and the rates of the Hallsdale Powell Utility District. I'm sure you're aware of the issues with that.
That's been going around for a while over there. I'm just glad that my water is with First Utility and my electricity is with LCUB. So
That's like, but people was calling me up with out in Powell. That's the big issue, right?
Right.
And that's pretty much the only issue I hear about it. I ask people, well, what concerns do you have about county government or what's going on in the county? They say, what's going on with my sewer and water rates out here? I had a woman yesterday. Saturday. I was talking to, who said she got charged $124. This woman is mother and daughter living in the same house. $124 for like sewer and water.
Wow.
I just got my water bill tonight because I was just checking my email from First Utility. I think mine's like good. I'll go ahead and tell you what mine is right here. It is. Where is it? $36.56.
Right.
That's a huge difference right there. That's absolutely enormous.
We had a house of 5 at one point, and I don't recall. I can only count a few times that our water bill and our sewer bill ever got to $100. I mean, it was even when we had 5 people in the house. My wife, myself, and 3 kids. Even when they were in high school, middle school, I don't think our water bill ever got much close to $100. And I've been out to those community meetings out at Hallsdale Powell, and there's certainly some issues there. But so folks can go to Vote Steve Weiner. That's VOTESTEVEWEINER.com. And find out all the information, the contacts for you. Steve, I appreciate you joining us. I'm sure we will be talking. I
just wanted to, before we get off, if you have an extra, I wanted to circle back with the Hallsdale Powell thing. And I heard it's just a lack of accountability and transparency is what I heard. Was the big issues for people with that. And that's a big issue in my campaign too. Is the lack of adherence to our ethical requirements that we have as politicians, and that's something that I think we should take more seriously as elected. If I'm elected, that I'll take seriously. We got to observe our state sunshine laws. We got to observe our state ethics requirements in terms of how we deal with the public. And I think that's something that's kind of lacking right now with the incumbent. Right. So I just wanted to, get that in before we wrap it up.
Yeah. And this weekend on BrianHornback.com, folks can go see that post I put up where your opponent used his Knox County email address not only to ask individuals, yourself and myself, you got it and I got it, for a yard sign, but also it was brought to my attention because I didn't really read all the way to the bottom, but even at the bottom of that email, he's got a donation. He's got a solicitation for a campaign donation. And, like we've already talked about, he's got an on-hand amount of $190,000. And it would be interesting to know how many donations he got off of the solicitation from that.
This isn't the first time this has happened, I don't think. I mean, I'm seeing this. What do we not know about that's going on here? Right. That's my concern. And if I were in his position and something like this happened, first of all, I wouldn't let this happen. For me. I mean, but second of all, if I were him, it's time to take stock here. This is a serious problem. That has been going on. In terms of, I read articles on your website about the state sunshine law issues he's had in the past. And I'd seriously examine, if I were him, whether or not I'm actually fit to stand for this office. And if I were him, I'd drop out. I wouldn't continue with this. This is seriously wrong conduct. You can't do this stuff as an elected official. This is not what we expect from our elected officials. This is not the standard that we set out for ourselves. Right?
Yep, you're right.
And so that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it's not appropriate at all.
Right. All right. Well, I appreciate you joining me. We're out of time, but we will have you back, and we'll continue to follow your campaign. And thanks for joining me tonight, Steve.
Thank you so much. You have a good evening.
You too, buddy.
Bye-bye.